is up, and it's good.
You're listening to The Extra Point, hosted by Phil Ruskin. Welcome.
Yo, 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 welcome in. Welcome to another episode of The Extra Point. It's your boy, Phil Ruskin. I am your host, as always, joined by my good friend, Mr. Kendall VanDerBilt of the Fantasy Football Tavern. What up, dude?
Hey, man. Just hanging out, enjoying the off season, going through the brutal, this day in particular, this position set, running backs. When I get down into the weeds on like the outside the top 24, it's a welcomed pain. You know, it's a brutal mess of the mind trying to make it happen, and I just haven't had the time to get on the phone and get on the trade streets quite yet. But really enjoying just diving into the nerdiest side of Dynasty fantasy football, in my opinion. So yeah, loving life.
Yeah, it is. I realize that it's difficult to do a top 24 show because, let's be fair, most people already know the top 24, but there's nuance. And I think if you're looking at this show the way we're looking at it, it's number one, how would you approach this if you were in a startup draft, right? So you still need the top 24 there. And then I think at some point when we get deeper into March, we will do the 25 plus rankings because those players are super important, right? So it's not just let's talk about the biggest, sexiest names. Like we want to do that, but you got to talk about some of these guys. As Rasta likes to say, but Phil, you need those guys on your roster. So yeah, man, let's talk. Let's get into it. So we're going to talk about the way too early 2026 Dynasty running back rankings. Little disclaimer for those who didn't catch the quarterback show last week. We're only talking about veterans. We will not be doing the rookies tonight. We will get the rookies their own dedicated time as they deserve in March. So Kendall and Evan and the rest of the crew will probably be doing shows all throughout February. I am off on a very lengthy and much needed vacation for the majority of February. So in March, we will break down all the rookies and get you ready for the draft in April, which here's my fun fact. Fernando Mendoza looked good last night. Looked great. That run, by the way, I literally said to now we got to remember my entire family's from Miami. I'm from Gainesville. The rest of my family's all from Miami, right? So it's like I'm a Gator, but I have that, soft spot of like, sure, I'd love to see Miami win this game and make my uncle, my cousins, everyone happy. As soon as he hit that run and the dive into the end zone, I said out loud, I was like, you have to win the national championship now. Like you can't lose after that kind of a run. So
that's what the other team was thinking too, though. Shoot,
you
know, half of Miami's watching that and just knowing they watch football. Like it's over.
Yeah. So I bring Fernando Mendoza up simply because this is obviously a running back show, but fun question. Is he the number one? Is he the 101 to the Raiders? Because here's what I heard deep within the Twitterverse. The Raiders are apparently putting together, supposedly, a very attractive package to the Ravens to get Lamar. Is it possible?
No, not possible.
I don't think it is either, but
no. It's don't think of football. Think from our day jobs, the business world.
Yeah.
This is an owner situation where there is a door where the Ravens kind of get egg on their face if it goes wrong, and it's a risk that no organization as pristine as the Ravens should ever take. Because even if they win, the risk associated with it is just not worth it when you have an organization worth billions. You don't screw around with that.
You either keep Harbaugh and trade Lamar, or you fire Harbaugh, which is what they chose to do, and you re-sign your two-time MVP franchise quarterback. So yeah. Let's talk about running backs because that's not the – but I just, I saw that yesterday and I was like, oof, I need to talk about it for a minute. So we'll go through the rankings tonight, and Kendall and I will have some nuance. We'll have maybe some guys in some different tiers. We have some larger tiers, some smaller tiers, but at the top, Kendall, give me your tier one running backs if you were in a dynasty startup today and you are definitely going running back. Who's the foundational building blocks in your tier one running back rankings?
Yeah, so right now I got 3 running backs in my tier 1. I'm debating opening it up to 5. I think 4 and 5 are pretty obvious. We'll get to that in tier 2. But for right now, I've got Bijan as my clear cut, super safe at the 1. Doubt that's changing for a minute. I got Gibbs at the 2, and I got Devon Achane at the 3. So that rounds out my big 3 right now.
Yeah. So I am very similar with you. I obviously have Bijan at the top of the list, as I imagine everybody does, and to be fair, as everyone should. I've got Mr. Gibbs here slotting in at the number 2 rank, and then I actually have James Cook at 3. And I know that you've got him here. Sorry to tease your rankings a little bit. I know you've got him down the board here at 8. But here's why I have him so high. There is no wide receiver in Buffalo. Now, I expect, and I think we both would agree that that should change this offseason, but this is a way too early rankings show. And right now, it is Josh Allen and James Cook is the backbone of that team. So he finishes his RB8 2 years ago, RB6 this year. I have him at 3 simply because the yardage and or the touchdowns are there. I have Achane at 4. I have an asterisk next to Achane. And I think a lot of what I'm excited to see about Achane is what is his usage going to be with this? Was it Jeff Hafley? That's how you say his name? I think. The coach. Because Mike McDaniel's. First of all, we'll get to him in just a couple minutes because we both have a tier 2 running back that now has a new offensive coordinator in Mike McDaniel, or at least it looks like is going to be his new offensive coordinator. But I'm really curious to see like where Cook and Achane are come April. And then come August, we see what happens in this free agency. So that's my top 4. You have a much larger tier 2 than I do. I only have 3 guys in tier 2. So I'm going to go first here. I have JT at 5. We have seen the overall RB1. We had a phenomenal bounce back season this year. He carried the Colts for long stretches when Daniel Jones went down. Even though they were, losing those games, he kept them in them. Certainly returned fantasy goodness for your team. I have Omarion Hampton here at number 6, and I have Ashton Genty at 7. So, Kendall, you have a large tier 2. Give us your tier 2, and then we'll start talking about some players.
Yeah, so I'll just say the top 2 guys in tier 2 for me. I'm pretty much I'm debating whether or not they belong in tier 1. So take that for what it's worth. But I could say tier 1.5 is Hampton followed by Genty. So do have a Hampton just ahead of Genty there, and then to round out the rest of tier, it's Travion Henderson, JT, James Cook, rounded out with Breece Hall, the bottom of tier 2.
Yeah, so we're gonna skip down to my tier 4, my number 15th ranked running back right now, which is Breece Hall. You have him at 9, I have him at 15. So not a huge difference in terms of numbers. You have him just inside the top RB1 rank. I have him sitting atop that RB2. What gives you that sense that RB1 is within his future this year with the Jets, assuming it's with the Jets? And that's the big assumption.
So I have him at 9, assuming he's not with the Jets, actually. It really comes down to, and I've got to take a deeper look at this, so hopefully I don't get too much egg on my face here, but when I just look around the league a little bit, and actually I forget who I was watching, but I think a couple other early look dynasty shows I was looking at kind of agreed, and they were just generally looking at a sheet of the top 32 teams and kind of looking at just charts of like trying to figure out strength of position groups when you're figuring out your pre-draft situation, right? Your draft boards. And it just seemed like there was a pretty good amount of good to very good landing spots for running backs. And then you compare it to the draft, and it's like a historically bad running back class. I honestly, outside of Jeremiah Love, I know there's the other guy who's kind of slotting in at RB2 in the class, pretty consensus, but I'm just not quite all the way there. There's just not enough talented running backs to fill these slots. And I think all the teams and GMs know that, and they've known it for a long time. So early on in the process, I think they're going to be looking at the free agency market and just overall making some trades to solve that. And so because of that, I think several teams have already been thinking about the Breece Hall option. There's going to be enough out there. And the Jets have already shown signs that they're willing to sell it all for a bunch of draft picks. And at this point in time, it makes the most logical sense for them because they don't just have one back in the wings, right? They have two, right? They like what Isaiah was doing for them, and they also Braylon, I think, is going to be who ultimately wins out as their RB1. But they have two; it's not just one. There is definitely a chance he stays, but I feel like it's just probably not a situation. And if they try to re-sign him, I think Brees made every indication that if it's up to him, I think his agent will probably say he'll make more money by getting endorsements again at some point in time if he can just show up and be good somewhere else. So I'm leaning at least 51% that he moves. I'll just put it this way. If he stays, it can't get any worse. I was pretty big on the Jets in terms of Garrett Wilson. If quarterback's not terrible, he got injured, the team fell apart. It doesn't have to be terrible. And they have all these first round picks they accrued, I think a couple seconds too. So look, I'm not going to get heavy on the Jets winning, double-digit games or anything. That ship has sailed for me. I won't go there again. But, I mean, it's not going to be as bad as it was. Improved but not good. An improved team is good enough for Brees Hall that if he doesn't get traded, he's probably not falling outside of maybe 12, if I had to guess for me. So I'm just pretty steamy on him.
I mean, look, I love Brees. I made a big trade for him in one of our main dynasty leagues that we're in together a couple years ago, which at the time was a good trade. Right now, looking back on it, maybe not the best trade, but situations change. Let's play a game. I just want a yes, no. I'm going to read some teams off, and I think this is not maybe an order of likelihood, but this is kind of the first thing that comes to mind. You ready? Will Brees Hall be a Saint next year?
It's a maybe for me, but if yes, no, I'm going to say no.
Okay. Texans.
No.
Broncos.
No.
Cowboys.
No.
Jets.
Gotta say no.
Ravens.
No.
Chiefs.
I'm going to go yes there. Get your first yes.
Cardinals.
Yes.
Those were all the teams. Those are all the teams that I could think of off the top of my head that did not have a 100% surefire starter. And you'll say, but Phil, the Broncos have RJ. I get it. But here's the thing. Here's why I put them in there.
I got one more for you.
Who?
Commanders.
Oh, thank you. Knew I was forgetting someone.
The Commanders is definitely a yes.
That's a yes.
Messy Bill situation that went bad. They are primed and ready for it. So
here's why I think it could be a Saint. Right, we talked about quarterbacks last week, and this is a Brees Hall take. Here's why.
I want to hear this. This one's
because if you look at the formula that is happening around the NFL right now, it is still the same formula. Now, this year is different because the teams that are in the playoffs that are still left do not have, other than Drake May, right? Because now Bo Nix is out, so I'm going to exclude the Broncos. Actually, I'll keep the Broncos in there. But you have a rookie quarterback on a cheap contract. Right, Sam Darnold has been paid. Stafford has been paid as of last week. You had Caleb, who was so you still have these young teams, right? Caleb, Bo Nix, Drake May, that are on these cheap. Bryce Young, that are on these cheap rookie deals. CJ Stroud, I think, is on his second contract, if my memory's right. He is. He got paid. Okay, so you have these guys that are basically not free, but they are reduced discount, and you like Tyler Shuck. I don't love Tyler Shuck, but the Saints are not going to the playoffs next year. They don't have the roster. Their cap situation is a complete disaster. So here's what I think if you are Kellen Moore, you need to do. I have to look it up. Kendall, can you help me here with the give me 1 second. I'm just going to get the draft order here. But the Saints have the 108.
8th overall, yeah.
They have the 8th overall pick. So that right now, right, I've seen mock drafts. I've seen Mel Kiper. That is the hot oh my God, my brain just went blank. Jeremiah Love, sorry. That's the hot Jeremiah Love mock position right now, right? Alvin Kamara is getting older. They don't have anybody in the wings waiting who's really the guy. Sure, there's a couple pieces, that we like, but they're more, rotational guys. That's not a bell cow, and it's certainly not a 2 or 3 down back. So here's my thing. If you're going to draft Jeremiah Love, great. Now you have a cheap rookie quarterback and a cheap rookie running back. Now you can go and restructure all of the debt and get everything cleaned up in there, and you have a foundational piece, at least we think, at running back. But what if somebody trades up, which is very realistic? What if they decide they need to go get, a lineman, a defense? I mean, the Saints have so many holes in their roster that I could very easily see them saying, you know what? We're going to make Brees the foundational piece of our running back room. We've got the cheap quarterback. We love Chris Olave, and we're going to use the draft to go get the next best piece that we can get at the 108, a lineman to protect Shuck or whoever, a defensive pass rusher, whatever it is that you're going to go and grab. I think it's a possibility. So the part that I think would be difficult for the Saints, as I mentioned, is the cap is completely upside fucking down. It's a disaster, but it's going to be a disaster no matter what, because even if you draft a first round rookie running back, you still got to have 21 other guys on the field, or 20 other guys because you've paid Shuck. Let's go down to 19 guys because you've paid Olave. That's a lot of people that need money that have to get paid to get on the field, regardless of who you're paying and how much you're paying them. You still have to have bodies, 53 of them, to play football. So I think it's realistic. I would say the Texans are close to winning a Super Bowl. That defense is nasty. You've paid Nico. You just drafted 2 wide receivers this season. I don't know what the Christian Kirk contract is off the top of my head, so it's possible that I think it was a 2-year deal.
I remember it being 2 years. I just don't remember the money. It was 2 years, though.
But you've got Jaden Higgins, who's on a rookie deal. It's fully guaranteed, but it's a rookie deal, and he looks really good the second half of the season. You've got Jalen Noel. You've got Nico. So they don't need anybody there, right? And I like Woody Marks. I like Woody Marks a lot, but look at what the Lions did with Gibbs and Monty. Look at what the Bears have done with Monangai and Swift, right?
Marks can't stay healthy too, so adding to him is...
Could you put a Woody Marks in the same role he's in this year and go upgrade yourself to get a Breece Hall with that defense, that offense? That's a Super Bowl caliber team.
Could like old school Seattle when they would trade off with Chris Carson and I forget maybe Thomas Rawls. Who am I thinking of? But they would go series for series, a la old school Patriots teams. They would keep the quarterback attempts down and just play defensive bully ball with fresh running backs all day. That's not a bad narrative plan for them if they need CJ Stroud to just have play action all day, open it up, keep him to under 40 attempts all day. Broncos, I kind of like that.
Broncos interesting. Sure, I don't think they need him, right? Harvey coming back, and then you should have Dobbins coming back. Cowboys, it's Jerry. It's just more of a headline news. Big trade for the Cowboys because he just wants to stay relevant.
He already did a trade with the Jets, though. They're not going to do another one.
Yeah.
I think.
The Ravens, I think, could be interesting only because we're going to talk about them in a little bit, but Derrick Henry, the Chiefs is the obvious one. The Cardinals is pretty obvious, and so is the Commanders. But I think don't be shocked if Breece Hall winds up with the Texans, because it was rumored this year too. That was sort of floating around, and I think it's possible. So let's jump back into our rankings here. I have a large tier 3. It is my largest tier. You have a fairly large tier 3. I just spoke for a couple minutes about Breece Hall and some possible landing spots for him next year, which, by the way, would drastically change him up or down in my rankings, depending on where he goes, whether it's the Jets or to a new team. So, Kendall, why don't you give us your tier 3 running backs here? Because we've got some guys in the same mix here, and then we've got, let's talk through them.
Yeah. So ending my tier 2 ended up in Breece Hall, right? So tier 3 starts at RB10 with Chase Brown, at 11 Bucky Irving, and then 12 Quinshon Judkins, 13 Cam Scadaboo, 14 RJ Harvey, and at 15 I got CMC.
Lot of young players in that category for you, and I have some mixed in here. So this one was hard for me. I know I stole a line that you've used is I just couldn't get him any higher in my rankings. I really like how you phrased that over the last couple of shows we've done. It's my boy. It's CMC at 8, Saquon at 9. So kind of the elder statesman here at the top of tier 3. And then I get into some young guys as well. Henderson, Judkins, Bucky. I do have Josh Jacobs and Kyron in this tier 3. And it's really more about, number one, with Josh Jacobs, it's situational. There's just still nobody else there. It's just volume is king. Jordan Love has looked great at times. He has completely disappeared, and they have leaned on Josh Jacobs at times. So my reasoning for having Jacobs in the, right just outside this top 12, if you want to start your dynasty draft with a big-time wide receiver, I'm very comfortable coming back in the second round, or as you and I like to do in an auction draft, maybe spending up, for a Jamar Chase, spending up for a JSN, somebody like that that's going to be the anchor of my Puka, is going to be the anchor of my team, and then maybe getting a tinier discount and still feeling comfortable with Josh Jacobs being able to return RB1 value. I know that Blake Corum has been in this season and has been a nice compliment to Kyron, but Kyron's got the contract, and at the end of the day, Kyron is still going to be McVay's guy. So that's my tier 3. What I want to ask you is this. I want to spend some time on this one because we have him at 11 and 12. What did you see out of Kinshawn Judkins this season? And what do you think? I know he's coming off an injury, and I get the rehab process, but again, everything presumes health. What did you see this year that leads you to believe he's going to be an RB1 next year? Because obviously by our rankings, we both believe that he can return that type of value.
Yeah, okay, so for me, I don't like running backs on bad offenses, right? That's terrible. And he was just so usable when the rest of that offense wasn't.
Yep.
And you just rarely see that. So from a what could happen, sometimes I just take out all my knowledge and just say the situation was really bad for them. The NFL has rubber band mechanisms where the bad teams get better and the good teams get worse because of how the draft works. And that's how it all plays in the sandbox. I think that team is getting a little bit better. Every year that roster gets a little bit better because they had like the worst trade ever, at least one of the top 3 worst trades I think I've ever seen, right? That's like unquestionable. And they get a little bit farther out of that every year. So just for that logic, he was good in an awful situation. And he wasn't good off of just pure volume, right? It was actually him looking good. Very old school Nick Chubb, right?
Mhm.
Kind of taking on that mantle of someone that can, for fantasy football, do something on very little targets and catches with 20 carries that you just don't see in the modern NFL. We're seeing not too many 20 carry running backs anymore, to be honest. And normally we'll take the 15 carry guy that gets a bunch of catches over the 20 carry brute. That's just kind of the modern way to play right now. And he's one of the few where he can randomly still catch 3-4 balls on top of it. It's not a skill set he doesn't possess. It's just not what he's known for. Similar to David Montgomery, always gets hated on that way, but he always delivers when he needs to in that particular aspect. So if the team gets a little better, and I'm not projecting them to get a lot better, but we know their defense is going to stay pretty elite, should win the field position game, giving them plenty of red zone attempts.
Yep.
I don't like changing head coaches. I think that could set them back a little bit, but this is Dynasty rankings, right? So I'm not even looking at just next year for Quinshawn. I don't want to do a series of rankings where I say, oh, well, so what if Quinshawn, falls off a cliff next year? What if the offense actually gets worse under a worse head coach, right? We've seen that plenty of times.
Yeah.
And I'd say, dude, the kid just had his first beer the other day. He's still pretty young. And I think that offense, again, every year it gets one more situation removed. And I think it's better for him. So it's going to be difficult for me to almost ever get him past that ranking unless he and then offense levels up in a major way. But if anything, he feels extremely insulated for me with his production, with all the things against him.
I think if you are looking at a dynasty startup and you are able, it's probably more likely in an auction than it is in a snake draft because of the way the board falls. If you are able to get Kinshawn Judkins as your RB2, you are feeling phenomenal about your RB room, right? So I have a league, Kendall, that we're in where now I drafted, so it was a little bit different, but I have Christian McCaffrey and I have Judkins as my RB1 and 2. And I feel fantastic about that for all of the reasons. But I'm going to give you 3 things about Judkins that I like that I think could drastically change next year for him. Number 1, he's only playing about 50 to 60% of the snaps. Dylan Sampson rotates in. They've got a couple other guys that the Browns are funky. So I think if he gets his snap percentage up just a tiny little bit, you just mentioned it, what he can do on 20 carries, right? In games when he had 20 carries, this is a full PPR league, 16.5, 21.5, 13, 26. He's giving you double-digit high-end RB2, low-end RB1 numbers when he's getting that kind of a number. So can he get his snap percentage up a little bit? Number 2, you already mentioned it. Skill set, he's not a Christian McCaffrey. He's not a Gibbs in terms of that pass catching, but he can do it. And I don't know who the Browns have, and I think that the quarterback room is going to suck again next year. It's going to be some combination of Deshaun Watson and Shador. None of that inspires me to feel really good about it. And their wide receivers are, Jerry Jeudy and the tight ends, Fannin and Joe. There's not an alpha. There's not a Puka there. There's not someone that's a target hog. So I do think he can catch a couple.
There will
passes.
next year, though.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. And I think the last piece is this. This is a player who in year 1, only on 230 attempts, still put up 827 yards and touchdowns. 7 touchdowns. That's where I think he's going to return value is can he become a James Cook light where he gets into that 12 touchdown range? And I think he can because I just mentioned there's not a massive, target share going to an alpha wide receiver. It's touchdown by committee. And at the end of the day, you mentioned, it's a dynasty rankings. You're not worried about the coaching change. I'm not either, but I can tell you this, whoever the new coach is, they're not going to want to get fired. So they're going to try to put the ball into their best players' hands. And right now, I think Judkins is probably their best offensive player. So at least that's how I see it. And so I think you're right. Like, it's hard for me to put him any higher, but I don't see a world where he doesn't have the opportunity to finish as a back-end RB1. So I think we both like Judkins moving forward. I'm going to get into my tier 4 here because all of my names are actually in your tier 3. One of which was at the air in tier 2. Breece Hall, I already mentioned, is at 15. Chase Brown at 16. Cam Scatterbo at 17. Let's talk about the Crayon Eater because he is going to have a new head coach. He's going to have a year 2 quarterback that we really like. He's going to hopefully have more running lanes because he's going to have Malik Neighbors back, which demands that you're going to not be able to stack the box because there's actually a vertical threat there. So you have Scatterbo at 13. I have him at 17. So he's just flirting with RB1 numbers for you.
Actually, it is an oversight. Honestly, I've Scatterbo over Judkins. Actually, if I were in a startup, I would actually flip them. To be honest, I do have Scatterbo as an RB1.
Okay, so at 12. Why?
Really, two factors. One, I actually really like. I think the Giants are going to be my Patriots this year, and I'm not copying Colin Cowherd. This was my own take. I'm an old soul like him, and we agree on a lot. So I really just liked the way he played football, the way his game fits into the NFL. Like I'm assuming I'm kind of anti-injury. I think people overreact to it. I think especially in Dynasty, his age, he'll be fine. He'll bounce back. If we ever get to Javonte, he's kind of an example. But I think the team's going to get good. Nailed the head coach, right? Yep. I want a running back with that head coach, feeling pretty solid about that. There's also a situation where Dart seemed to really enjoy throwing to the running back, particularly in the red zone too. It seemed like something that either the coach was telling him to do it or he was doing it. But Scatterbo was catching way too many pass catching touchdowns, just feeling a lot like Austin Eckler out of nowhere. I watched so many of those games. So the combination of he's just a weapon in the red zone and he has this NFL identity where like he's part of the team's identity in a way that like, when Debo was having his heyday with the 49ers, he was just like the soul of the team in a pretty big way. Right. I feel like that's what that team gets from Jackson Dart. He makes everyone else 1% better. As a coach, as a good head coach, you are going to feed that player the ball because if Cam Scatterbo scores, it's like a game breaker in video games, right? It's like, every one of my players stat boost plus 5% if Scatterbo scores. That's kind of how it feels. It's what happens to the fan base if you're a Giants fan. So it's a guy they're going to be having as a central weapon as soon as he's healthy. Now, when you get Neighbors back, that offense actually has some real ceiling to it. You can start averaging 28 plus points a game, which massively favors the running back. Because, you just need a lot of points and the running back will have to get a bunch of them because it's just how the NFL works, right? Red zone trips mean enough of them, running backs, 20 points, right? So good offense can score multiple ways. And I just think he's going to be known as a weapon from the team. Sometimes predicting usage is pretty difficult because you just don't know what's going to happen in the training camp. You don't really know how much of a locker room guy is sometimes unless they're well known. That he is well liked by basically humanity. You can't say that about most running backs. Actually, you can say that most people hate them, right? We're high on Judkins, off the field stuff, little things like that. Sure. The fact that Scatterbo is as insulated as I've ever seen a position that's worrisome for helps me get him above other guys that I would have some question marks. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you in almost everything you just said. I think the challenge for me is with Neighbors coming back, how many passes are really going to go to Scatterbo. I do think he's going to catch passes, but I think that you've got vacated targets this year that had to go somewhere. But here's where I think Scatterbo is going to shine. Touchdowns, red zone. It's going to be a Greg Roman offense. They want to pound the ball. At the end of the day, they're going to spread it out and they're going to throw it, right? They're going to have a high percentage of throwing passes, but John Harbaugh is not going to we talked about this last week when we were talking about Jackson Dart. he is not going to let Jackson Dart go out there and go banging around, and all of a sudden he's out with Tua syndrome for the season for 6 weeks, is getting banging up concussions every week.
Yeah.
That's
when
not the
Cam
recipe
is
for
actually
winning football.
actively asking for a concussion.
Yeah,
He's
well, I
begging
think
for it.
he was born with a
love
concussion.
one.
Yeah. I think when he gets hit in the head, it actually unconcusses him. You know what I mean? It's he's like, oh shit, I can go forward again. Oh, more football. He's a wild man. But my point is this: I think when you look at the way that I'm not comparing Cam Scatterbo to Derrick Henry, but I think when you look at the way that the Ravens the last couple of years deployed Henry, short yardage, goal to go situations, and they have one of the most dangerous running quarterbacks in the league. It wasn't as many quarterback draws as it had been in the last couple of years under Greg Roman. It was Derrick Henry, pound the rock, get it thing in the end zone. So I think you see more of that this season. I brought up the touchdowns. We just talked about Judkins. Judkins played 16 and a half games before his injury, 7 total touchdowns as the feature back on his team with a lower snap percentage. Scatterbo had 5 touchdowns in 8.5 games, excuse me.
On a team that won, 4 games?
On a team that was atrocious. And I will say this right now so that it's on record. Barring injuries, if everyone is healthy, Giants are a wild card team next year.
Yeah, totally agree.
And I don't listen to Colin Cowherd, so I don't know if that was his take or not, because I don't listen to him. But
But
I will tell you right now,
he thinks they double their wins for sure, and I think they're closer to double digits. I think the Giants win 10 games next year.
They're going to have a soft schedule. Everyone talks about it this year. Why did the Patriots win the games they won? Because they had that soft schedule. Now the Patriots are in the AFC Championship game, so maybe they're actually better than we gave them credit for. And Vrabel's a hell of a coach, but they're going to have a 3rd or 4th place schedule. So I think Scatterbo, at the end of the day, you're going to see his attempts go up in the red zone. And I think that's where he's going to really return some value for you. So I like Scatterbo. I have a hard time getting him into this top 15 just because of what I've seen, but it would not surprise me to see him, whether it's of his own merit or it's because of injury or a bit of both, to see him inside the top 12. Kendall, give me your tier 4 guys, because now we're starting to get into some guys here that have maybe some question marks next to their names here.
All right, so tier 4. This is where it starts to get a little bit messy for me, and it's more of a tier-based thing, and I'm still developing a lot of the takes, so I'm not standing behind this quite yet, but there's a couple you could ask me about. They're clearly the way it is, right? So right now, at the top of tier 4 at RB16, I've got Kenneth Walker, followed by Javonte Williams, then Kyron, Josh Jacobs, Woody Marks, Travis Etienne, and Trey Benson. Had to add Jacobs in there. I actually just missed him in the rankings somehow. I thought I double did him, but there you go. Walker, Javonte, Kyron, Jacobs, Woody, Travis Benson.
You also did not rank Derrick Henry.
So no, I did. You keep looking. He's probably down there at where I've got just a bunch of A's and X's where I don't have tier 5 done yet.
Yeah. Okay, so he's down there in your A's and X's category.
And Henry's down there in Dowdle, Bill territory. I'm fully. It's Dynasty, right? Unless you can guarantee me I make the actual final 2, like the championship game next year, Derrick Henry is actively just going to make your team worse.
I think this is it. I mean, my tier 4, I already did. So my tier 5, because you had a much larger tier than I did, but my tier 5 is Derrick Henry, KW3, and DeAndre Swift. So I'm going to say this real quick because I ranked Henry. I think if you have Henry on your team, you have already made the decision that you are riding to the death with him, and that's fine. Yeah. Sometimes you just have to. I get it, because I just don't know after this season, new head coach, 1 more year older. I don't know what you're getting for him. I think if you wanted to trade him for something this year that we just finished was the year to do it. Well, who I want to talk about here is the player that you have at 16 and I have at 19, who just, I won't even say it out loud because you all watched the game. You saw what happened. I want to understand where you are with KW3, with Kenneth Walker III, because I know there's an asterisk that Charbonnet got hurt in the playoffs, which means he's probably going to miss the beginning to most of the first half of next season. We have to assume that that's what's going to happen. But my point in bringing that up is that should mean more opportunities, more snap share, right, for Walker, and they will have someone as a backup in there, right? Let's just, for the sake of assumption, because it's a dynasty show, say that Charbonnet comes back early, or it's 2 years from now, and Charbonnet and Walker are both under contract with the Seahawks. How close do you have Charbonnet because we saw it was nightmare for fantasy managers this season, whether he was in redraft or whether it was in Dynasty, because Kenneth Walker right now, Kendall, for me, it is the perfect best ball player because you don't have to worry about starting him. And that's my question to you is, how confident are you if you are going to draft him that he is a startable RB2 on a weekly basis and not a flex?
So Kenneth Walker, I'm taking the approach with Kenneth Walker that he is how would I phrase this? He's more of a math play, more of a how I want to play fantasy way. I have to take him out of the equation a little bit. And I just have to think about a couple parameters and try to be a little just predictive, right? Little stock market, try to time the market, which I don't know how to do in regular stocks, but I can do in fantasy pretty well. It's the idea that talent versus situation comes up a lot in fantasy football. No more so than at the running back position, right? Where opportunity is everything, right? We were starting Bam night this season plenty of times. That tells you a lot, right? That's just how the running back, how many times will you dump 100% fab on a guy that will not be in the NFL next year and everybody knows it?
Sure.
It's the only position that can happen at, right? So it's kind of got a special place, right? So my thing with Kenneth Walker is coming out. I remember his draft class because I have a bunch of Brees from that. Kenneth Walker was supposed to be pretty close to Brees Hall in terms of talent, right? This wasn't there's a chasm till you get there, right? He was right there. He was closer to Brees than anything else. And I think Brees got all the hype and whatnot. But early on, you could even see in the rookie season, you saw like, oh, Kenneth Walker's nice. He moves NFL different. Like he's good. And I haven't seen a year yet. I mean, he's been banged up and all sorts of nonsense. I haven't seen Kenneth Walker play. And I haven't seen like, oh yeah, I don't know about the talent. I've never once said, I don't know. I've questioned decision-making a little bit, but not the talent, not the guy on the field. And anytime he gets all the opportunity, he seems he does quite a bit with it. And I'm just saying he's on a very, very good team, right?
Yeah.
You want running backs in very good teams because the situation can go all over the place. But they need to be on a good team. Otherwise, it's not worth talking about. So he was on a great team, but in a near 50-50 snap share. When Charbonnet's had the lion's share of it, he's looked good, not great. We would have wanted a little bit more. Half the points from fantasy and Charbonnet's things come from catches. They come from touchdowns, right? Kenneth Walker can score 20 fantasy points without a touchdown. It's crazy, but he can actually do that. And I think we see that his fantasy production can come from a lot of different places. So I think his situation is good on a good team, bad with Charbonnet. But the talent is evergreen for me. He's still pretty young at 25, I think. So I think in the general range of outcomes, Charbonnet there, not there. I mean, if anything, Walker was the one that could potentially leave. If he gets traded, I think his value goes up slightly because that team will see him as a feature back. And I think Charbonnet is a fantastic talent. He's better than a lot of running backs in the league. Wherever Kenneth Walker goes, Charbonnet is going to be a better talent next to him than whoever he goes to, in my opinion, for the most part, right? I think Charbonnet might be better than Trey Benson right now, straight up, right? Like if that were to happen with the Cardinals or something along those lines, right? So if he gets traded, he's better. If he stays, Charbonnet makes the pup. We got 6 weeks of Kenneth Walker, and then afterwards, doesn't Charbonnet take, like most running backs, a little while to scale back up, right?
Yep.
And at that point, is Kenneth Walker more the DNA of the team? So similar to Brees, if he goes, it's great. If he stays, I am betting on talent and that situation and opportunity is more volatile than we give it credit for. If I have a bad season, I'm just early on my shares for the following season, and he's young enough that still matters for me. So I'm spicy on him, but I think there's reason to be.
Well, that's good because we may have to cook up a trade then because I am on the opposite side of the fence.
Ooh,
I am Wilson, sitting like this over Tim Allen's fence there. I don't believe Kenneth Walker will return RB1 value at all. He never has. I don't think he's going to get traded because of the injury to Charbonnet. I think he's going to be this feature back for Seattle. And so what I think the most likely outcome, and this isn't a dynasty take, this is a season-long take, but it's going to turn into a dynasty take with the reasons, and you'll understand it here in a second. I think the most likely outcome is that if KW3 starts hot next year, trade him because Charbonnet will be back. And you're right. It could take him an extra couple of weeks, but you always want to trade a player a year early. I traded Austin Eckler that last year that he had with the Chargers. Everyone in my league was like, are you kidding me? You are insane. How could you blah, 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 blah. I've won that league 3 years in a row. Part of that package turned into a trade pick that I believe was the 105 that I somehow traded up into the 102, and I grabbed Bijan and Gibbs out of that draft. Pretty damn happy. The guy that has Eckler, not thrilled. So at the end of the day, it's the same conversation we have about older players. Derrick Henry, right? Now I understand KW3 is younger, but like, you got to get out a year early, and it is okay to get out a year early, take the lumps, oh, you idiot, how could you do this? You just returned. But look at the data. And that's, Kendall, you know how I make my decisions. Most of it is data based. I don't believe that there is a world with a healthy Charbonnet that Walker is going to return RB1 numbers. So to me, it's like, you want him to start hot next season. You want him to be the focal point of that running attack, which he clearly will be. And then I think you get out because Charbonnet scored 12 touchdowns this season. Walker scored 5. And it wasn't that Walker, you sometimes have those, who's the backup running back in Indianapolis? I don't remember. Anyway, whoever that is, Indy, JT goes in there for two rushes. They don't bring him, they doesn't get it, and they bring him off the field and they put the other guy on, or they throw it to Tyler Warren, right? It's like, oh shit, JT didn't score. It's not going to happen. KW3 wasn't on the field in the red zone. That's where Charbonnet was on the field. That's where Charbonnet was really making, you just said it, everything with his value. It's not the yardage, it's the touchdowns. And he had 12 of them. So to me, when I look at, and I've got it up right here, here's Walker's historical numbers. You ready? 1050, 905, 573, and 1027. Those are his total yardages. 9, 8, 7, and 5 in total touchdowns. I understand this is a little bit of box score throwing numbers at you. But again, look at the inconsistency. Look at how frustrated you were this season, because you're right. He can get 20 points in a game, but he's not finishing as a low-end RB2 because of consistency. He's finishing that way because he has some spike weeks in some games, and he's probably on your bench. Or he's in your flex, and you're just like, oh, thank God, this is the week that I really needed him to do it because CMC and Judkins, who are my running backs, had stinkers, and I'm lucky enough to have, Walker, and I threw him in there as a flex over, Devontae, whoever, right? Whoever you want to flex him over that week. Zay Flowers, and now all of a sudden you're like, oh, thank you, I got it done. But again, it's like when you look at your RB2, and I want to read you some names. Sorry, I'm going to grab this rankings sheet here. Ready? Scattaboo or Walker as your RB2?
Oh, Scattaboo.
Chase Brown. DeAndre Swift.
Walker.
Okay.
Well, that's a tough one.
See?
Yeah, I mean, here's what I'm saying. If I'm winning the title this year, like it's a really tough one for me because my easy dynasty answer is Walker, but there's situations where I would willingly give up value to have greater PPG in a 1 year season, and Swift is just there for me. So that one is I have to go middle of the road only because I'm above market on Swift too.
Let me give you another name, someone that you have lower in your rankings who also has a bit of a handcuff problem. Kyren Williams or Walker.
I have Walker ahead of Kyren.
And I would take Kyren. That's where I'm at with that one. Let me give you this last name because this last name is an interesting one here. Travis Etienne or Kenneth Walker?
Walker.
Okay.
Walker.
I would also have Walker, but that's my break right there.
Kyren's close. Kyren feels like it should be Kyren, but I gotta be spicy on someone, and I'm kind of spicy on Corum over Kyren.
Last name. If Kenneth Gainwell went away for any reason, Jaylen Warren or KW3?
Probably the other running back, but it's not Warren. It's not KW3. It's gonna be Caleb Johnson at the end of the day.
Okay. Steelers running back, or that's my point. That's my point. You made the point. Okay, so that's where I'm at, right? Like I understand the offense. I get the appeal. I really do. I'm not out. I'm not sitting here saying do not draft KW3. He's going to burn your team. I'm saying draft him for what he is. He's an RB2. And I know we talk about RB2s all the time, and we're going to talk about it here in a couple minutes. Like, Kendall, give me that player who can make that leap from RB2 or that, fringe guy who's going to be an RB1. And I'm sure you're going to give me, well, I'm only going to let you give me one, but you could
Fair.
give me 2 or 3 names. And I could give you 2 or 3 names, and he's not one of them. And this isn't like he's a rookie. Let's see how he does next year. This is 4 NFL seasons now. So I am in a place now where I think Kenneth Walker is, it was a Dennis Green comment, they are who we thought they were. I think Kenneth Walker is who we thought he was. He's a good NFL running back. He is an RB2. And if I can trade him to someone who views him as an RB2 with upside, I am more than likely going to make that trade. So that's kind of where I'm at with him. And that's why I wanted to talk about him for a little while, because you have him 16, I have him 19. So kind of, I have him in tier 5, you have him in tier 4, you have a larger tier than I do. But yeah, that's kind of where I wanted to go. So let's talk about some guys here. I have in tier 6 to round out my 21 through 24, the back end of my dynasty rankings here for RB2s. Travis Etienne at 21, Javonte at 22, Woody Marks at 23, and Ramondre at 24. This is really where I have some question marks about some of these guys. I'm looking at your rankings: Swift, Monangai, Charbonnet. I want to spend some time, Kendall, on Javonte, because I know you have been higher on Javonte historically than I have, and he did. He had a great season this year. He was at I believe early in the season, I think he was the overall RB1.
He was.
Two.
He was the overall like multiple weeks.
Yeah, so he was leading the race there for a while. The first question I want to ask you is Javonte a Cowboy next year?
I think so, because it's very Dallas for them to, hey, we liked what you did for us. You made us real. We're going to sign you. We're going to do the thing. It feels very Dallas. That's all I can say about it. I've been predicting that Javonte is going to stick around. They got so many other areas they got to address in a bad running back class. So they're just, and I think if they sign him, they got to sign him for at least 2 years. And with Blue just not being a big threat, I think it just locks him in for at least 2.
Yeah. So if he is in Dallas next year, what's your outlook? Because I think the biggest question Dallas has this year, outside of the running back and re-signing of Javonte, is Pickens. CD's not going anywhere. Dak's not going anywhere. That you just said it. There's other areas that they need to address. They started to address the defense with the Quinnen Williams trade, but they've got a long road. Personally, I don't think Pickens is a Cowboy next year. I think it will either be Javonte or Pickens, and I think Pickens will be more expensive than Javonte will. And I think in that category, as we all know, Jerry loves to lowball his players and give them the most minimal amount of money he possibly can. But if it is Javonte, where do you see him next year? Because you have him at 17, correct?
Yeah, I do.
I have him at 20, and I have him at 22. So we're not super far off. You have him kind of middle RB2. I have him a little lower end RB2. Is he ranked appropriately, or do you see him as a guy who, like we saw this year, who can return first 6 weeks overall RB1 and should be ranked higher?
Well, to coin my own term back to me, it's hard to get him much higher. Yeah. Right? Like this is dynasty, not redraft. So I could see him like spike and redraft, if he hits again, right? But it's a situation where he had a good situation. If he gets traded, most likely his situation is worse.
Yeah.
Like I look at Javonte similar to like a DeAndre Swift. He's good enough, right? We're in a good situation. He can really do quite well. And in a rougher situation, he can lose a lot more value than you were planning on. Right. So he's in a good situation. I hope he doesn't move. I think he's a loser if he does, but I'm so on him staying. And I don't know, my ranking on him is just based on, man, it feels like 75% for me that he's staying. And when that happens and he gets signed, I feel like everyone will be like, well, I got 2 more years of this in Dallas. And it just feels, it's going to feel good. It's going to feel like he's going to feel insulated and productive at a decent age.
Yeah.
And I'll feel pretty good. There's that ranking where you're like, I feel like he could go down 1 spot or up 4. I like that range. I don't think he's going to go up too much higher, but I just can't see him falling outside of him getting traded to like the Commanders and 50-50 with Bill or something like that.
I don't see a world where he goes to the Commanders in division. But I do think I think he gets re-signed. I just mentioned it. I think he's cheaper than George Pickens is going to be. You're right. I agree with you 100%. If he goes
Or is it
somewhere
cheap
else,
acquisition to the Saints if they don't get a premium back?
yeah, but again, like you just said, I think it's probably a downgrade if he goes somewhere else, right? Like unless he's going to go
Yeah.
somewhere and really be the guy. Like I don't think going to the Cardinals makes him, even though he'd be the guy, I don't think would be an upgrade on that offense. I think the
Yeah.
Dallas Cowboys is the perfect fit for him.
He needed a lot of touchdowns, which he did have in a high-powered Dallas offense, right?
And
He
that's the
loses 4
point.
touchdowns. He's, where is
And
he?
that's so my thing is this, as we always talk about, contracts are king, right? It's not everything, but it is a huge part of the deal in Dynasty, right? It means the team's paid you. They're obviously going to commit their capital in the years to you. I would safely say that Javonte gets a 3-year deal in Dallas. Could be 4, but I would say 3 is probably the more likely, knowing Jerry. And so I think if you're looking at a startup draft, you'll probably disagree with this, and it's totally okay if you do. I would rather Javonte Williams be my RB3 as like a fill-in rotational RB2, situational matchup, flex possible depending on my league settings, than I would have him be my locked and loaded RB2 on a weekly basis. But I understand that not every draft it's possible to get that caliber of a back as your RB3. I totally get that. But that's what I would prefer if I could do it. It's more likely, you and I love auction. It's more likely in an auction draft, you could spend your money and get maybe 3. Maybe you're not getting the, the Bijans and the Gibbs and that tier, but maybe you're going after a young running back and you're going to say, I'm going to piece it together with Judkins, Scadaboo, and Javonte. And you spend your money and that's that'd be a pretty solid running back room, right? Kind of weekly rotation there. Maybe you get a higher caliber RB1 than one of those names. But my point being is that I think Javonte in my rankings, I feel very comfortable. Like you said, I think you said it perfectly. Could go up 4, could go down 1. I'm looking at my rankings with Etienne. I could see Javonte re-ranking that. Walker and Derrick Henry, I could see Javonte being re-ranked above both of those players as well as Swift. So I think I could get him to 17, 18, but that's probably where I think I would feel comfortable with him landing. So at the end of the day, Javonte is an interesting name and will be a big name to keep an eye on this offseason with the contract and possible trade. And what does that mean? Because it's a big free agent running back class, and it's a thin wide receiver class. So I didn't rank these guys, Kendall, and I told you this pre-show, but these are 4 names that I didn't rank on purpose. And I want to try to talk through a couple of them here before we wrap the show. Let's start at the top of my list, because I think this is a player who is a trade candidate and I think could be a feature back for an NFL team, because he was his rookie season and he certainly is capable of the workload. Where would you have Tyler Algier if he was on the Saints? Now, I know that's in division. I get it. But like the Jets, the Chiefs, right? If the Commanders, if Tyler Algier were to go into an RB1 role, where would he slot in on your rankings? And you don't have to answer maybe the exact number, but would you be comfortable with him as potentially as high as an RB2?
Yeah, no, easy. Like looking at my rankings, and I know he's in tier 4, so he's at least Trey Benson, at least, and I would have him ahead of Benson. I think I'd have him right around 20. He's right around Woody Marks, ETN, below Josh Jacobs for sure. I can't get him above Jacobs in Dynasty, but he's right around there.
25 years old, 4 years in the league. Has, other than his rookie season where he was RB29, right? He's had Bijan the rest of the way, and he's at the end of the day, like it's tough. I get it, but like he's capable. He's a better Rachaad White. And Rachaad White has been a capable back when Bucky has missed time. I would put Algier ahead of White. So to me, Algier is somebody who, again, right situation, I would probably rather have him than a handful of. I mean, I know the Saints is a difficult one because that's an in-division team with the Falcons, but for all intents and purposes, like what would you do if Algier landed on the Texans with Woody Marks? Where does that put him for you?
Ooh. Wow.
'Cause
See, that
tougher.
one's hard to predict because I don't know what they do with usage there. That one is like, that one's food for thought because Woody Marks was his college prototype is he was a passing down back.
Yep.
And so they bring in Algier to then make Woody Marks the passing down back. That does feel like I would actually really like Algier there like a lot. I mean, they win a lot of games. He would kill it. Like that would be if he gets the work there, I think that would be insane. That could be a ridiculous landing spot for him. For the most part, I think I'd have to have him like top 18 at that point, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want him to become. Here's what my fear is with him. My fear is he gets a job this offseason elsewhere where he's the guy, and it becomes a Miles Sanders finally left Philly for Carolina and shit the bed. And Dalvin Cook got shipped out of Minnesota, and Alexander Mattison got promoted to the RB1 and shit the bed. Now, I understand there were some injuries there. I get that. But prior to those injuries, you were massively you thought you were getting a huge discount in round 6 or 7 because you were getting the Saints. Saints been on my mind today, clearly. The Panthers and the Vikings starting running back, and you were bamboozled. So I don't want that situation. I think that is a fear, but like if Algier went to the Cardinals, I think he outplays Trey Benson and becomes the guy. I know that offense is funky, but like he's going to outplay Bill if he goes to the Commanders.
Yeah, I think what would happen is he would become the Rico Dowdle, where all of a sudden he's just good. He's just actually good. He's not good all the time, but better than meh, and it might go back and forth. So, yeah. I'd see him as similar to a Kyle Manon guy, but slightly different situation there. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Algier, to be honest.
Yeah,
he's a guy I think a lot of analysts are going to say to pick him up. I think the time to pick him up is like, I mean, it's got to be right now before the articles and like all the major things happen. I mean, like you got 1 to 2 weeks. Otherwise, when major dynasty season happens, he's going to be too popular. And honestly, people that are looking at their teams already, as soon as the season's over, the young running back and what could happen is very hard to acquire. Mm-hmm. They're easier to acquire when the season starts and all of a sudden they go to potentially just not useful at all once you're playing football, right? So I don't know. We'll have to talk about that a little bit. A huge buy for me right now if you can still pull it off.
It's a buy for me as well. I think in a worst case scenario, he's a buy if he stays in Atlanta just because we don't speak things into existence. But if somebody were not available, you know what he can do. And he's also a buy because if he goes somewhere else, it's more likely than not he goes to a better situation where he's going to probably be the guy, even on a worse offense. Like, here's a team I haven't brought up at all. What if Tyler Algier was the starting running back for the Tennessee Titans this coming year? With Robert Saleh.
I would like that a lot. With Saleh, I think that could make sense. That would be actually that's a nice compliment in Spears there, where they don't really vulture each other. I think that could be kind of nice year 2. I mean, they got to pick up another weapon on offense. Like I wouldn't buy him right away. That's the one where I would wait and see when the Titans aren't great, I would buy him low, just knowing that I think it's going to keep getting better. Yep. Yeah, like I said, there's some decent running back landing spots. Like all the teams that need running backs are they're bad, but they're all set up to do a lot better. Like predictably, they'll be a little bit better. I hate it when somebody a bad team's they could be still very bad. All these teams have no, they're going to be 2 games winning better.
I mean, the obvious answer to me on this list of teams that need running backs is whoever winds up on the Chiefs. Yeah, because I like Pacheco, but they need to upgrade him.
Chiefs also saw all last season what it was like to not have a running game.
Correct.
Chiefs make the playoffs if they have a running game. Probably.
Correct. Probably.
It solves everything.
Yeah.
Right. And
you've got a youthful third year now wide receiver who's still on a rookie deal. You've got Rice who's gonna get, I think, 4th year. Or is he 3rd? I don't remember, but I have to look at their contract.
I think it's 4.
But you've still got guys that you haven't paid yet. You haven't paid them. So you can acquire a higher priced or more mid-priced running back and still pay some guys. And let's talk about Rachaad White, and then we'll finish with one other name. Rachaad White's interesting because his social media posts suggest he's leaving Tampa. He's basically said goodbye to the city. Todd Bowles is I don't agree with it personally, but Todd Bowles is coming back. I think this is his last year, and then they fire him, assuming they don't make the playoffs. So I think he is a lame duck. Hot seat, fire on his butt seat. Rachaad White's really interesting because we just said it, the Chiefs, the Jets, like someone's going to need a running back that is not the guy, but is a good complementary back. So my question to you is, do you see Rachaad White being a focal point of a rushing attack, or do you see him being more of a committee back like he is, a complementary back, even if in a more even timeshare like he is in Tampa?
I see him as a complimentary back. I
Yeah.
see him as the type of back that he's going to fit in a lot of places,
Yep.
but it's going to be easy for a team to look at him and say, hey, when he was the guy, what did he do? He did some good stuff. When he wasn't the guy, he was a good teammate. We saw that as a role player. He was also successful. So it's easy to see slotting him in as a role player that could take on an elevated role if he really, nails it. And the nice thing is he has that 3-down set where he doesn't need a crazy role to make it happen, but if he gets it, he gets all of it, including the 3rd down. So the Saints were like, the teams like the Saints that want to be cheap. I don't know what Rashaad's price tag is going to be. I'm not so good at the guys like Rachaad, where it's like the production fell off a cliff. So is a team going to pay you? I feel like they usually get paid based pretty heavily on their most recent form of production. It's not on their dynasty rank. It's mostly on their production. I think his production wasn't good enough to get a big bag. So I feel like teams that need to save money are going to look at him. The Saints are the biggest team for me that needs to save some money, in my opinion. So they're kind of an obvious target for me. And I do think that the Commanders are probably another big. I just feel like he would be good on that team. Solid pass catching weapon that can just get in there. He's like a better version of what they already have on that team. If they get shit.
I love that take. I think the Commanders make a ton of sense for him. I was going to throw another team out, and they don't have a coach currently, but I think the Steelers would make a lot of sense for him with Jaylen Warren if they were to let Kenneth Gainwell go, because Gainwell is a free agent this year as well. So, I mean, that to me, 26.8 years old, 27 years old for White, like basically the same age. But I think White has a pretty similar skill set to what they used Gainwell in this season. So to me, that would be an interesting, but like, listen to these names, man. I mean, Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams, Rico Dowdle's going to get paid. Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, J.K. Dobbins, Kenneth Gainwell. Like, these are all for Rachaad White. Like, these are all good running backs who are free agents this year. So, I mean, there's Najee Harris, if you still believe he has anything left in the tank with his pirate patch. You know what I mean? Like, there's names here that, like, Nick Chubb's done. Like, Nick Chubb's not getting a job. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain guys out here. It's like, okay, you're probably at the end of it. Like, Jerome Ford could link on somewhere as an RB3. You know what I mean? Like, he could wind up in Philadelphia as, in that room with Shipley and with Barkley, right? Like, that's possible. So I know they just traded for Bigsby, but my point being is, like, he could land a job somewhere as like a throw him in on a couple downs. But like Raheem Mostert's done. He's 34 years old. He ain't getting a contract, even a league minimum. So, but there's still a lot of big names out there. This last one I want to talk about is Jaylen Warren. I don't have a reason to think he's not a Steeler this year. I mean, they're not going to trade him. He's under contract. They're going to get a new head coach. We just talked about it. Gainwell is a free agent, so it's possible they bring him back. But it's Jaylen Warren's, Arthur Smith. Hopefully Arthur goes away. I hope he does not become the head coach. Good God, that would be atrocious. Yeah. The rumor right now is it's Mike McCarthy is at the top of their list.
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
Which I have a huge issue with. And, I've mentioned this in the chat. I won't go down my rabbit hole, but I have a huge issue with fired head coaches just getting head coaching jobs because they're quote unquote a head coach. Like, dude, you didn't win. There's a reason why you got fired. You know what I mean? Like I would love to see Sean McDermott go to Pittsburgh. I think he fits that role perfectly.
Oh, that'd be fun. I like it a lot.
Great fit for the city of Pittsburgh, and that kind of head coach in that city, Sean McDermott should be at the top of Pittsburgh's list. But Jaylen Warren, I mean, I've always liked Jaylen Warren. I know that I traded him to you in one of our leagues this year. I think you had Caleb Johnson. You were wanting to have that backfield, and
yep.
It was a good trade for both of us.
Thank God, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was. Yeah, thank God you had him because Caleb Johnson would have sunk your ship. Yeah. But look, 27 years old and, his most productive NFL season. is there a world where Jaylen Warren finishes in the top 15, finish top 17 this year? I have a hard time getting him. That's why I didn't rank him. So I wanted to
I
talk
can't.
about him.
I think I don't like that. I don't think he has a ceiling, right? We don't have the head coach, and we don't have the no head coach. No, it's easy to say all the signs that we want for some stability aren't there. So you'd have to bet on well, inside of this absolute chaos, there will be running back production somehow out of all the things, and that's just tough, right? Where I can see it is I don't love their offensive weapons. I do like him as a pass catcher. And if Gainwell goes away, I see a path where he's just a necessary 5 targets, and he can just get there on some brutal efficiency with his numbers, right? I think he's talented enough. I can't get him that high unless Gainwell goes, and I don't have a good feel. Yeah, I need to see some vibe check on Gainwell. He kind of came out of nowhere with all this production, so it feels like a guy who could get a bag, but he could also just not, right? I'm not really sure how it feels like Gainwell's got to go. Like, what's he doing on the team? Pittsburgh's not doing anything next year, so it feels like, hey, I just had a career year. I should probably use this to do something, right?
Pittsburgh seems like one of those teams to me that could go into a rebuild. I know the owner is going to come out and say, that I saw an interview with him, and I think it was him who was like, oh, rebuild's not in my vocabulary. Well, that's cute, and it's a great answer, and I'm sure you're, big, strong man, but sometimes you got to rebuild.
There's 31 other teams in the NFL that could force you into a rebuild. Yeah. If you just don't win games.
Just look at their roster. You know what I mean? No Aaron Rodgers, which is fine. I get Aaron Rodgers is 40,000 years old, right? So it's not a big deal if Aaron Rodgers doesn't come back. But what is a big deal is you don't have a quarterback. And the problem with the Steelers is the same issue that it's always been with the Steelers. They always make the playoffs. So they're never close enough. Man. Yeah, they're not close enough to get a good quarterback. They're not close enough to upgrade that position, right? So it's there is no free agent market for quarterbacks this year. None. Zero. You know what I mean? There is a world, 100% world, where it is Jacoby Brissett and what's the kid that's there right now whose name I don't mean, Mason Rudolph.
Yeah.
And then the rookie that they took from Ohio State, right?
Yeah,
I don't remember Howard.
Yeah,
whatever. So it's again, we do this all the time. We know just about every player in the league, and we can't remember these kids' names. So that should tell you right away. I 100% believe it is going to be some sort of a bridge or a trade, but I don't know who you trade for. You can't afford anybody. What are you going to do? You're going to take on Tua's contract with all those concussions? Get out of here, dude. There's no way he fits in Pittsburgh. So they've got the DK looks like a disastrous trade. As much as I hate to say it, the Seahawks GM looks like a bloody genius.
I mean, absolute.
Which is making with the Russell Wilson thing, followed by DK getting out to get value out of a dead. The Broncos look smart right now, but I mean, it's basically whoever got rid of Russell Wilson looks like a genius, right?
Yeah. Oh man.
So it's hard with is Caleb Johnson going to be a thing? It's Jaylen Warren. That's it right now.
Yeah. I think he's super insulated. There's 2 takes here, right? There's the buy low, sell high take, and there's how do you rank him in Dynasty, right? Jaylen Warren's a guy that I think I'm going to want to buy because of his price tag. Everyone's going to be down, but I know the value of at some point in time, all my running backs are going to be injured because that's what happens to everybody.
Yep.
And having a cheap option that can give me high-end RB2 production on any given week pretty consistently, even on a bad team, that's valuable when you can get it cheaply, right? I know what I've spent a mid to early second-round pick on in Dynasty, and it won't cost me that much. That's what it cost me last year when he was getting the starting job, right? When a team had some hope. So I feel like he's cheap enough I'm going to want to invest. But Phil, you know this, right? With running backs, I think me and you would rather have a studs and duds approach. The usage is more predictable with the studs. We don't have to worry about the bottom collapsing, kind of like if you overinvested in Kenneth Walker, like this guy, or when me and you overinvested in Brees and we had to eat it for a little while. That was painful, right? But the duds can become, at running back, the duds can become stars temporarily and long-term pretty quickly. So that's why we like that approach. It's going to be hard to invest in a guy like Jaylen, because it's you're going to get a little bit of production, but he's going to have a massive depreciation factor. Massive. So what are you buying, right? He's the type of guy that a contender should pick up cheap, and that's it. That's the only person that should buy him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting year. Again, this is the way too early rankings. This is why we're doing this, is to talk about guys who are fresh in the mind because their seasons have just finished. Some guys like Scattaboo, who we really like, that we saw a lot from, that we think could be a huge riser next season, and rightfully so. And then some older guys. We've got questions about certain players, and we've got, Derrick Henry on probably his last legs here. So join us next week. Kendall and I will be breaking down the top 24 wide receivers. And then in 2 weeks, we're going to be breaking down the top 12 tight ends. And the remainder of that show will be the overflow receivers, because there's just too many receivers outside of the top 24 that deserve to be talked about and need to be talked about, because most formats now are going to either a start three wide receivers league, or you're having multiple flex spots. And especially in a PPR league, Kendall and I would both tell you, unless you've got an incredible pass catching running back, we would more than likely want to fill our flex spots with wide receivers over running backs. So Kendall, as always, my guy, appreciate you being here, man. Looking forward to chatting some wide receivers next week. For all of us here at the Get Right Fantasy Network, for myself, the host of The Extra Point, appreciate you being with us. Catch you next week. We out.